Welcome everyone to our meeting of the Long-Term Recovery Committee for the town of Southbury. I'm Kevin Bielmeyer, the Economic Development Director and co-chair of the committee. And before we see who we have joining us on today's Zoom call, I do want to begin by announcing and welcoming Stephen Schnell, the town's emergency management director, not only to the committee, but as well to a new role with the committee as co-chair. So welcome, Stephen. Hey.
Yeah.
So a few things I want to touch on before we get going, and I think I've just let a few more people in. You may have seen in my messaging that we did post to our page. And reminder, we do have a page, so if you're speaking to anyone about the long-term recovery committee, and if people are asking what's going on with it, what are you guys up to, I want to remind you that we do have a page on the town website. If you go to the town website and then you do / and you start to type in the letters LTRC, it'll bring up that page. But then there's also a link in one of the drop-down menus. I think it's under community. So just a reminder of that. We did post the message that the SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, had additional benefits that came out on October 16th. So we provided a link to that. That's providing more assistance to 105,000 households in Connecticut. So saw that announcement, thought that was on target with what we're doing, and thought I'd put it out there as one of the resource links. Also, we've begun phase 3 of the guidelines. The guidelines for reopening Connecticut phase 3 is something else we posted and shared to let everybody know the latest in terms of the governor's executive order. That obviously has an impact on what we're doing. Something not posted yet, but I wanted to relay is, not that this has happened, but Connecticut business groups, many of them, I think 13 to 14 different business groups like CBIA, are appealing to the administration for $70 million in revenue for small businesses per the CARES Act funding from the federal government to the state. So groups got together and are advocating that some of that money, namely $70 million, be allocated for this purpose. Stand by to see the outcome of that, to be determined. And then I also wanted to mention that we are continuing to explore ways that we as a town could make available funds for small businesses, as a fighting chance fund kind of approach. So we are in talks with some banks to see how that kind of partnership might work. So that's all I have for right now, but what I did want to do is introduce our guests that we have joining us. Let me let one more person in here. There we go. I do want to welcome from the United Way of Greater Waterbury. We have Linda Zukakis. I'm saying it wrong, aren't I, Linda?
Zukowskis.
Zukowskis, Communications Associate with United Way of Greater Danbury, and Jason Martinez, who heads up Community Impact. And I asked them to join us as this is, again, on target with our committee. We don't actually have, obviously a United Way per se right here in town, and we also don't have directly on the committee, although Dawn is certainly stepped into this role for this sector, but we don't have someone that's leading the nonprofit sector per se represented in the group. And as I said, Dawn is our liaison to that sector. But I thought it would be helpful to hear from the United Way and find out what they have been doing with regards to COVID-19. And I see your finger there, Dawn. Would you like to say something?
I just wanted to say that I'm also on the board of, I'm on 2 United Way boards. So, yeah, so I'm happy to bring back whatever information is required. So that's it.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, well, I feel well covered in this area. So, without further ado, let me hand the baton over to Linda and Jason, and then just let me know if you want me to share that graphic at some point.
Yeah, we definitely will. Jason, you want to go first?
Um, sure. I mean, a really quick introduction. My name is Jason Martinez. I'm the new Vice President of Community Impact at United Way Greater Waterbury, and Southbury falls into our 10-town catchment area. I've been with this United Way, I think this is week 7 for me. But previous, I was at United Way of Greater New Haven for almost 7 years, focusing on a lot of the same kind of buckets of work: financial stability, basic needs, and education. So I'm really proud to have joined this new team. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about Alice and about kind of United Way's COVID response. Linda, I don't know if you wanted to share anything before I jump into the formal presentation.
Yeah, just to say hello. I've been helping United Way. You might recognize my name. I cover, well, lately Southbury for Voices newspaper, and I help United Way. There's a program, either it's known either as a sponsored executive or a loaned executive. For the past couple of campaign seasons, I've been helping them with their campaigns, going out, talking about what they've been doing. Dawn, obviously, she's volunteering. She knows we do some good stuff. And a very good team. Jason has impressed us. We say things like, wait, it's only been 7 weeks. He's actually like jumped in with both feet. So I was very happy that he could join us today, and thank Kevin for reaching out to us. Southbury is in the 10-town area. We want you involved. Kevin, well, Jason, Kevin is ready to show the graphics, so anytime you need it, let him know.
Great. Yeah, so before we jump into the formal COVID response, I think it's important to just talk a little bit about Alice and who Alice is, because so much that's happened over the last 7 or so months through this pandemic has really directly affected Alice. And so Alice is an acronym. It stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed. So it's really what we used to call the working poor. It's folks who have jobs, sometimes more than one jobs, and are still struggling to kind of meet ends meet. And so the thought is there's kind of a survival budget across the state and within each county that someone needs to make in order to really thrive. And many of our families aren't at those levels, even in towns such as Southbury. I don't know all the data off the top of my head, so I did have to quickly look this up before this meeting, but I wanted to have the Southbury Alice data. 28% of folks in the town of Southbury are struggling to meet ends meet. 28%. So that's, a little more than 1 out of every 4 households are making trade-off decisions when it comes to, do I buy food or do I pay my rent? When it comes to, do I purchase this new medication or do I pay my mortgage? Do I put money in my car for gas or, do I save? Those are real trade-offs that so many of our families are making. And Alice can really be anyone, and Alice is anyone. Alice are many of our janitorial positions, many of our office manager type roles, right? It is folks who are really working hard and still struggling because, especially if you have children, with childcare being so expensive for, adequate childcare, it can cost you for the year more money than if you had to send your kid to UConn for the same year. That's how expensive it can be. I mean, I remember my kids are 13 and 11 now. I remember when my youngest finally was going into schools, I felt like I had hit the lotto because there was all this extra money that we then had to spend on after school care because 2 working parents, that's what you do. But it's really extraordinary how expensive. And so really for a family of 4 across the state of Connecticut, you need to be making about $90,000 a year. That's over $45 an hour if you wanted to look at it like an hourly wage, which can be very difficult, even with two parents working, especially when you look across the state, and 45% of the jobs in Connecticut don't even pay 20 bucks an hour. So it makes it even more difficult. You know, there's a whole report you can go, I should probably know the website, but if you just go to Alice Report CT, I think it's Alice Saves Connecticut or something like that, you can find the formal report and read it. It's a really engaging read, but there is a lot of research, you know, looking at what goes into that survival budget. You know, it's food and it's transportation and it's technology. Of course, it's rent or mortgage, it's healthcare, all of those things. And you can actually read and figure out how did folks, researchers, because this is researched, not only all 15 United Ways in Connecticut have signed up to this report, but there are 11 other states across the country that have signed in and utilizing this report. But you know, you can figure out the food budget, for example. It doesn't include people going out to eat, even to kind of some of our favorite chain restaurants. I'm not gonna lie, I do love, you know, going to Chili's, or I guess I did, you know, before the pandemic. You know, it is really the bare minimum that the USDA says one needs to eat to be considered, you know, fulfilled. So, you know, there's not a lot of room in those budgets.
Jason, let me just have Dawn say something. I know she's got her hand raised.
Sure.
I just wanted to speak to this since I'm on the United Way board in Danbury, but one of my employees who I think makes a good wage, she's on the Alice board in Danbury, and she's part of that group, right? It's hard to imagine, but you've got somebody who's making a decent wage, 2 kids, a husband who's chronically underemployed, and you're there. And so that means that to really avail yourself of all the opportunities, you've got to go to the food drive-throughs. You've got to make sure that your kids get every free coupon for books from the library, or different days, and you have no savings. So, you know, here's an example. These 2 people had 2 cars. One died. They could not afford a second one. And when the first car died, I had to give them a loan. They had no place to go. They couldn't go to a bank. They didn't have any banking experience. And for people, if I wasn't, and I'm not saying I'm a great person, if they weren't able to find somebody to give them that $600 to pay back $10 a week, they would have been unable to get to any job. So right now they have to drive, she has to drive her husband to his job on the days he works, and then drive to our place of business. So pre-COVID. So it's very easy for people. $90,000 is a tremendous amount. And a lot of people who are constantly working are unable to meet that threshold. And they are just one incident, one, you know, broken leg that lays them up, or one, kids are home for a week and they can't get anybody to care for them, from losing a job, from spiraling out of control. And that's the terrifying thing. These are not just the working poor, they're working Connecticut taxpayers who are that close. So I think to us, we often think about it abstractly. Oh, that's the poor. No, this is everyone around us who's not able to afford the expensive living standards of Fairfield County and Litchfield County. So that's all I'm gonna say. But I think all the people who are working on Alice and at United Way are doing God's work.
Sean?
Thank you. And thank you so much for being willing to share that story, Don. I think it is so important for us to connect that to real folks. You know, again, why we've kind of used this acronym ALICE, because it is someone you know. You know, everyone knows an Alice. You know, your barista at your local coffee shop, for example, could very well be Alice. So I really do appreciate that. So, you know, I thought it was important to kind of put that framework out there around Alice, because COVID has drastically affected our Alice families. And so, Kevin, if you wouldn't mind sharing that graphic, what I think I'll do now is just go through to help folks understand what United Way of Greater Waterbury has been able to do in the community to support, you know, not only Alice families, but really all families. And so you can kind of just see this three-tiered approach that we've done. On the left, you can see that, you know, we've been partnering with the city of Waterbury for a COVID response for those who were quarantined or isolated. So what happens when someone becomes, you know, is tested positive for COVID and they're told, well, you have to quarantine. You shouldn't be going outside. You need to stay in place. And they're like, well, I don't have enough food in my home. How am I supposed to do this? And you know, it did take some time for many years. Our supermarkets, you know, wouldn't even consider utilizing SNAP for these home deliveries. Some supermarkets do that now, where we continue to work and have other supermarkets utilize SNAP and EBT when getting groceries delivered. But what we found was, you know, folks who were testing positive and needed help with medication, needed help with just those kind of essential items, personal hygiene items, as well as getting, you know, food. And so United Way was able to work with the city of Waterbury and fund that quarantine isolation piece. And, you know, we worked with key partners, you know, such as Leban's. I know Rob is on this call to ensure that families had the food they needed, you know. So thank you, Rob, for you and your family for partnering with us in Waterbury over this, because it is so important that we could allow folks to stay in place where they were, to keep others safe, to keep them safe. You know, so that was one kind of response, one tier, if you will. The second is the work that our United Way has done with the Connecticut Community Foundation to ensure that our nonprofits that are already stretched quite thin, as you all know, are able to continue doing the work they're supposed to be doing. And what we were seeing was our nonprofits were looking at their budgets and saying, oh gosh, we're gonna have to move some dollars around so that we can purchase PPE and help to you know, keep lights on and help to do other operational pieces that maybe they weren't thinking about before. And that is going to take away money from them doing what they're really supposed to be doing day in and day out. So we got together with the Connecticut Community Foundation, and we went ahead and raised dollars specifically for nonprofits to apply for COVID response. And that meant lots of different things. For some of our food pantries, they saw an influx of clients knocking on their doors and realized they needed more money to purchase more food. For others, it was, how do I move and pivot to a virtual model when I don't have the technology set up? And so we gave grants to help move these agencies, you know, into the ability to kind of set up these hybrid models where they could use technology and things like that. And so what that did was it allowed these nonprofits to use their regular dollars that they, you know, they use very well to continue serving the clients, so that folks didn't have to shut their doors, and we didn't see nonprofits, you know, kind of shutting their doors for good, not just during the pandemic. You know, we're still in a response period. Nonprofits are still struggling right now. We continue to raise dollars as we speak right now for this fund, even though over $500,000 have been distributed to the greater Waterbury and Litchfield Hills community partners for some of these supports. And the third tier is what we did, again, kind of going back to Alice. How do we get money in people's pockets when they're struggling right now? And so we partnered with all the United Ways across the state, and we raised dollars again for they're kind of electronic gift cards. And so the thought is folks who were in need could go to some of our community partner agencies, and we had designated a certain amount of these electronic gift cards worth $200 each to be distributed. And of course, because they're electronic, they do have to be utilized with like a smartphone. For those who didn't have that technology, we had kind of hard, you know, real cards that we were able to give out, just, you know, to ensure that, you know, there was equity across those who needed this resource. But what we found was there were people who just needed that extra income. And so in the greater Waterbury area, nearly 300 families were able to get these electronic gift cards at $200 each to purchase what they needed to purchase. And there was no, oh, well, you can only use this for A, B, or C, right? We're not going to pretend that we know better than these families and how they have to spend their money. I think that's definitely kind of the stereotype that those who are struggling, it's because they don't know how to spend their money. Certainly not the case. Of course, there are always going to be folks who don't know how to manage their money, but across all income levels. So not just, those who are struggling. But no, we told folks, here's $200 for you to use on what you needed. And what we found was almost 80%, I think it was 78% of folks utilize these electronic gift cards for food, medication, and utilities. The most basic of basic needs. And so we were really proud. We're actually working right now on another round of those electronic cards, working with our statewide United Way partners to get another rollout of those in the fall. So stay tuned for that. So those are just some of the ways that we've tried our best to support Alice and all of our community members, as well as our nonprofits who every day are supporting the community.
That's excellent, Jason. And we will provide the link to that graphic and any other links that you think might be valuable on our resource page. We actually did put the Alice report up a couple weeks back. It was brought to us by one of our committee members, and as an important report and document, on point with everything you're saying. And so we did discuss it a little bit and have that posted. Sean, I want to just ask you, I know you had your hand raised earlier. If you wanted to unmute, did you have something you wanted to contribute?
No, I've had the Alice report, the hard copy, for a couple of years. I just wanted to know if there was this was an updated version that I should go ahead and get that.
Yes, this is the 2020. My apologies, I should have said that out front. This is the 2020 updated report. So it is always a little late on the data. This uses 2018 data, but the most recent report came out in 2018 utilizing 2016 data. However, there is specific COVID-related data that was added into this report. And of course, that is more up to date than the 2018 statistics.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'll go ahead and grab that. It was an excellent report. It's extremely enlightening.
Thank you, Sean.
So, Linda, Jason, I didn't know, I appreciate you coming today and talking and sharing everything that United Way has been up to in the COVID-19 response, as well as your volunteerism in this area as well, Dawn. Was there anything else that you wanted to share with us today? I certainly don't want you to go away, but I do want to then go to the group and see. Go ahead.
Just a question. How can we support you? What is it that you're doing that perhaps will work within our mission? I think there is probably something, but I don't know. I haven't caught up to what you've talked about up to this point. So it would be a question of what can we do going forward with you?
Well, I think one area would be, because at this stage, most of what we've been doing so far is sort of an intel and trying to figure out, where the needs are. So I think that would be the first thing. Would be, is there data points? Is there information that the United Way of Greater Waterbury has that could help us identify that for Southbury? Secondly, as we identify those areas, it's figuring out where the resources are. So that's sort of the first order of business is, what are our resources? So, just knowing the resources that you've laid out so far is helpful, for example, making sure we share them. And also, so as we identify needs, we can connect appropriately to where those resources are. And then lastly, I would say is if the resources that we need as a region, as an area, exceed what we have available to us here, the purpose of committees like this and both the local and regional level is to put the voices together and make the appeal up the food chain, up the state level and federal level, and make sure that if there are resources available to us, and it's just a matter of making sure we're asking for them, that we do so. So those are kind of the primary three areas. Something I'm going to throw out today is whether or not as a committee we want to do something that looks as like a long range roadmap of recovery that we might want to consider. Really more for future forward if we were to run into, and inevitably you will, emergency situations. Does the town want to have perhaps a roadmap to recovery that could be born out of a group such as this? That's and I could see United Way tying into that as well.
Well, you've mentioned putting links on your website. I would recommend the link to the 211 phone number, so that, and this is something that could be very immediate. Anyone who's having any sorts of issues, they can call that number and find out, okay, what resources are available? Where can I go? I'm on the edge, might become homeless. What can I do? So that is a very useful tool, and we'd love everyone to know that that number exists.
Okay.
And even if someone doesn't use it immediately, maybe they know someone who needs it and doesn't know.
That's great. Yeah, I don't think we have that link on there.
We have lots of good stories. If you go to unitedwaygw.org, there is I think it's /gallery. We have a lot of good videos telling the stories of what happens when we're effective, which is a lot. One of those stories is about a nice lady named Tangela who, she's Alice, saved up, got the house, went into foreclosure because she lost her job. What Dawn was saying, people are just that one thing away from, oh crap. Right. So a friend of hers said, dial 211, and she found the resources, stayed in her home. The kids didn't have to leave their school system. Mr. Smith over here, he knows, a kid who's homeless, that's not going to help you academically. And all of these things, it's that ripple effect. It happened to the parent, to the kids, to the community. It goes out. So if you'd like, unitedwaygw.org or 211, good resources with lots of information.
Great.
Yeah, and
definitely
the last thing I would just add is, feel free to reach out to us. I wish I had the formal link, but we are still, it's kind of an open application process for the COVID relief funds in conjunction with the Connecticut Community Foundation. So if you are at a nonprofit or work with a nonprofit and they are struggling, specifically around this COVID situation, whether it's food resources or PPE or technology. I mean, those are just some of childcare. There are still dollars available. I'll be 100% transparent. We're getting to the tail end of what we have right now, but we are looking to do a second round of fundraising specifically for this fund. But folks nonprofits are able to apply for these funds. It's, I think, like a one-page application. So if you know folks, connect them to me, and I'm happy to get them that link and have them formally apply.
That's excellent. I appreciate that. Yeah, we will get that word out not only on our site as a resource, but more importantly, directly to all of our nonprofits. I'll connect with them and make sure that they get that message.
Great.
So, Stephen, did you want to say anything before we go further, Stephen, our Emergency Management Director?
Sure. I just want to let everybody know the 211 link is on the emergency management page on the Southbury website. So if there are additional links that do come up, we can get them up pretty fast onto the website. One of the things that we did when I started 4 weeks ago was to try and pull as many as we could from the regional level. to put them on there. Obviously, we can't put everyone's link on there, but we do have 211, the Red Cross, a lot of the emergency management end of things, and how to contact from a regional level and then from a state level. So those contacts are there. If anybody has any additional ones, please let me know. We can get them up there pretty fast.
Great, and that just reminds me that we need, the interconnectivity between even our own two sites, between emergency management and the long-term recovery committee. So we'll make sure we have overlap there and interconnectivity between those. One of our members that couldn't be with us today, again, thank you for joining us. To our guests, Linda and Jason, we really appreciate it. Just to move forward to our community members, our committee members, Tom Marks, who heads up communications, was not able to join us today. However, he did want to pass along a need that came up at last night's Board of Education meeting, which yes, Superintendent Smith is with us, Joshua, so I don't want to steal your thunder. Maybe I should just pass the baton to you. But it had to do with the furniture and desks, et cetera, that had to be removed to properly social distance, and that the furniture currently is being stored ad hoc at the schools, mostly in gymnasiums and multi-purpose rooms. But as the weather turns colder, the schools are going to need to reclaim those indoor spaces. And so there's an ask from our school system if to access indoor storage for this furniture through the winter, and we're trying to identify options. Would you like to jump in on that, Josh?
Sure. I'm glad Tom got the word out right away and he listened. Good. So, we moved a lot of furniture in order to create social distancing and spaces in our classrooms. So we have, like, if you think cafeteria tables, long tables where they're very efficient ways to eat, but not socially distant. Those tables were all moved out, and then we store them in gyms. And we've had students go outside for gym and recess and those kinds of activities. As the weather turns, we knew, and we still know, that we need to empty up those gyms. We've been looking for internal warehouse storage space. It doesn't need to be climate controlled. It just needs to be kind of moisture free. I don't need to visit it. We can store it and forget it. We've been trying to look for some large warehouse, 3,000, 10,000 square feet, and we can put it in multiple locations. We have movers. Loading docks are fine, but if we don't have that, that's okay. We've kind of had a couple of soft agreements that have fallen through since August, and so we just kind of started putting out kind of an all points bulletin to anybody that may have access to storage space or underutilized space in the area.
Okay.
Kevin, isn't there any large office building owner maybe that has empty space or basement space? Like, I know where I'm at 30 Main Street, where Newtown Savings Bank is, the landlord has a basement that's empty, and sometimes furniture goes in there from tenants that have moved out, things like that. Is there no one we could contact? And I don't know if he already has. That
so
maybe.
We've been, so the old Uniroyal building, we tried. That didn't quite work out. It was very cost prohibitive, even though it's empty. The Timex building, we haven't been successful in inking any agreement yet. We're willing to put liability insurance or things like that if the landlord needs it, and we are willing to pay. Obviously, we have limited resources, but it doesn't necessarily have to be pro bono. And it's the third. Oh, IBM. We were not able to get the deal worked out with IBM there because I think they're looking to sell some of that space. They didn't want to tie it up in the end. So those are the three locations that we've come close to, but in the end, it didn't work out. So that's
really disappointing.
Well, there's hearing that, Josh, there are other options. Some spaces have just popped in my mind just in this brief conversation about it. So let me put some feelers out, and I think that's a great idea, Dawn. And reaching out to some of, whether it be office space or just, there are some vacant buildings that, right or wrong, don't show any signs of movement anytime quickly, and certainly could suffice, and also could provide, the owner with, even if it's just a small amount of capital that they wouldn't otherwise be getting. So
That's how we look at it. It's empty space that people aren't using. We're willing to rent it from them and
Right.
do kind of all I don't even need a key, and there's nothing like people don't have to worry about it being damaged or stolen. We'll take care. I don't think anybody's stealing it anyway, but
Right.
I'm not that worried about kind of what we're looking to store. And I guess while I have oxygen here, I'll just say thank you to the United Way. We use the 211 services frequently, and I think people forget that as a school system, a large number of our employees are ALICE. Our bus drivers, our paraprofessionals, our cafeteria workers, our custodians, our substitute teachers, many of them received some type of support through ALICE. And that is a large part of why it's so important for us to keep the schools open. Students are being fed every day. They have access to social workers, mental health care, and structure in their day. And so I think it's important for us to keep the schools open, not just to educate students, but to provide a safe place for all these families that are in crisis right now. And even our gig economy parents may not have a lot of food security. And so I think that's part of the mission here and keeping schools open during this COVID time is to provide all of the services that come along with just good instruction and good education. So thank you for the work that you're doing to support those families.
Great. Thank you very much, Superintendent. I just want to open it up to the other committee members. If somebody would like to weigh in, if you've got a report from your sector or just comments on what you've heard here today. Just basically unmute yourself and jump in.
I'm going to just jump in for 1 second. I mean, what I'd like to do is find out from Heritage Village how we can disseminate some of that information. And even I'd be happy as a business to print up flyers or something, maybe especially regarding the 211. So I know there are a lot of people here who are semi-retired and have just maybe been forced into retirement since at least 2 women in my complex, late 60s, early 70s, who had a job, lost the job, and know they're not going to be able to find one due to age and COVID and everything else. And they are on very limited incomes. So I think if we can find some way of, joining in with the mailings that go out each month, something like that, I think would be huge, because there are really people here of need who I think are isolated in many different ways.
Justin, I don't know if you want to jump in on that, because I know that's sort of in your corner.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. In Heritage Village now, we're down to only 12 available units, which is completely unprecedented. Neither my father or I have ever seen it below, 50. Part of that, I believe, is people that are considering moving are just not comfortable with having people coming into their homes right now. So it'll be interesting to see how that changes. But certainly, we are seeing and hearing about folks that have basically been home since March and have gone out very, very rarely. They take advantage of the deliveries of groceries, pharmaceuticals, whatever. And there's definitely, I don't have any hard numbers, but there's a significant percentage of our 4,000 residents up there that are really hunkered down. And the village, you may or may not know, suspended most of their activities during the first shutdown, and many of those have not been reopened. They only opened, I think, one of the 4 pools this summer, and they had a reservation system for that. So that is, certainly a concern that, it's not healthy for folks of a certain age to be closed off like that.
Isolated. What's the best way to get word across I know there's a television network system up there.
They have a TV station, yeah,
Yep.
and that's probably, they watch it. The residents do watch it. They get a lot of good information off of it, so that's an easy way to get to them. Even some of the vendors that were doing newsletters up there suspended production of those since COVID hit. The main one is looking to start circulating again, but we've all seen how much the Voices has shrunk as well since the pandemic hit. So I think that TV station is a good thing. And they also went around early in the pandemic and just put a note on everybody's door to let them know about the grocery brigade and other things that were going on that could be helpful.
Right. Okay, so we'll figure out, contact the station and find out if there's other channels to make sure they're getting the information like you're suggesting, Dawn.
One other quick thing on my end, I tracked down one of the shop owners that we lost during the pandemic this week, and that was the shoe shine repair guys. And it was pretty simple why they made that decision. They couldn't come to an agreement with their landlord about some forbearance because they were closed for basically 3 months, and they're in a low margin business. So I'm not sure what we can do in that situation. I don't how we can step into that kind of a negotiation, but that was the feedback I got from them about why they ended up pulling back to their larger and more profitable store in Bethel.
Okay, so they had an option there. Some of the folks that have multiple locations, that's we are seeing that. As I mentioned earlier in the call, we did have an initial conversation with one of our local banks. I believe we're going to talk to another one as well, just exploring the possibility of what I had mentioned when we first started this whole committee about having a fiduciary and having a way to get funds to small businesses. Of course, the challenge even with doing that is going to be that they're loans, they're not grants. So there definitely is a difference between whether you're giving somebody a lifeline as a grant and you're not expecting them to pay it back. As we've all seen, the roundabout kicking, circular can kicking, in the federal government over the next round of stimulus. It doesn't seem like there's any resolution of that anytime soon. So I am more hopeful that the state will step in and provide some additional relief for the businesses per this lobbying that's being done by all the business groups that I mentioned earlier, to release, as much as $70 million per the CARES Act funds that have come to the state. And, and frankly, since the state often has made mention of the fact that, we've got the biggest rainy day fund in the country, which is wonderful, but, they haven't really said what they're going to do with that or tap any of that. So I think that's where some of the leveraging is coming into play. Just don't have any idea how soon that's going to happen. All righty.
Kevin, if I could jump on real quick.
Yes, Steve.
Just to give everyone a little bit of a heads up, over the last week and a half, we were made aware on a town level that the Southbury Library was actually awarded a substantial grant to use to get the occupancy levels back up. So talking about Heritage Village, a lot of those residents, in order to get them out and socializing again, we are working on I think it was like $34,000 in grant money that we got that we're going to use it's used for PPE to get the occupancy level of the library back up. So we're working on some mitigation projects right now that will hopefully be completed in the next 3 to 4 weeks, that we can bring the occupancy up to about 50 or 60 people at a time in the library, along with computer usage and getting more use of the library. So we've spent quite a bit of time over there working on what what different types of things we could put in place over there. So as that project really gets moving, we're gonna start pushing that information out as well, to get that additional community resource out and people know that it's open. So the library is open on Saturdays now. If you have not seen that press release, we are seeing that the library is seeing their notices are not being published in Voices or the Waterbury paper. So they're working on a campaign to really push that as well. Tomorrow I am going and picking up 160 boxes of food and milk with the Farms to Families program. We have identified 130 families at least. We have a 30 box buffer there for anyone that we were not made aware of, that we're gonna pick up and distribute that tomorrow. So we did that 2 weeks ago over at Grace Meadows with a known population. We've opened it up to through our First Selectman's office and through our senior center to identify and push that out. Anyone that was interested in participating. We originally asked for 200, and the USDA and the Connecticut Agricultural dropped that down to 160. So we're going up tomorrow with trucks and trailers to go pick it all up and bring it back and get that all distributed tomorrow. So if those types of programs are coming up, and it's, our biggest concern with that is everything is perishable. If we end up with 500 boxes and we can only give away 200, we don't have anywhere to put all of that food, and we obviously don't want any of that to go to waste. So we are looking at vulnerable populations. We're hoping between the senior center and their lists, and then the needy fund, individuals and families that are on that, we've hit at least made that offer to get additional services out to these individuals and families. So those projects are, the library is ongoing, and the Farms to Family is going to be done tomorrow, and then we're going to reevaluate Thursday and Friday to see if there's one more week of that program, to see if there's enough to sustain going up and getting another round.
So Steve, on that Farm to Family, two things. One is that something that people could still potentially sign up for, or is that the wait and see part? And then secondly, when you say that, if there's more boxes than will be distributed and it's perishable, et cetera. Let me just ask Rob his input on this. Is it something where we could reach out to the grocery stores as a potential place to store anything so that it doesn't perish until it can be distributed?
So so the ongoing part is obviously with it being perishable, we don't want to order more than what that we know we can give out. So right now we're shooting for 200, and we have right now 135 that have been said yes, they're coming. And the additional ones that we have left over, we have an agreement with the food bank that they're going to take what they can, so that leftover will be accounted for. But again, our biggest concern is if we end up with more than 20 or 30, where are we going to put 30 gallons of milk and 20 pounds of food in each one of those boxes? So again, that's the give and take of dealing with perishable food, as I'm sure Rob knows. We can't let gallons of milk sit outside for more than 3 or 4 hours while we're giving it out. And unfortunately, we don't have a refrigerator truck or anything along those lines to really pull all of that together. So yeah, we are working on. Next week is the last week of this program. So we'll see how tomorrow goes, and then we have until Thursday afternoon to make a decision of whether or not there will be a need for the following week as well, and whether we have the resources to go up and get it, because it is going to it's 2 large dump trucks and trailers that we're pulling all that stuff back with.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Rob, did you want to comment?
I think he's frozen.
I think you're frozen. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Did you ask me a question? My Wi-Fi today is off for some reason. I have to like reboot everything after this call.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just in lieu of what
Okay.
Steve was saying about perishable items and potentially what could be done if we end up with an overload of these items. Do you think it's something that based on your experience with Le Bon's, but also maybe knowing your competitors, do you think it's even worth checking to see if there's space, let's say, for overflow from the farm to family food program to not allow that to perish?
Space for us is really tough. We're busting at the seams in pretty much all of our stores, and you're only ordering really for the next day and the next day. So that does make it tough. I think maybe best case scenario, we would often rent like a rider truck, a refrigerated rider truck. And in that situation, I mean, you can let those things run overnight for, a week if you have to. And I think that could be a situation where the town chips in or covers a portion of it. It would only, it's probably like $900 for a week or something. I don't remember exactly, but that might be a situation where you have temporary storage with no long-term commitment.
Gotcha.
I was going to bring up also at the Board of Finance meeting last night, they mentioned the library funds. The one kicker is the funds have to be spent, I believe, by the middle of December. And if they're not, they have to be returned.
Good to know.
There's the big expenses are putting in air purification systems.
And I think you're frozen again. As you
So,
said, you're having
so
Wi-Fi
what,
issues.
Rob is trying there, one of the projects is going to be an air purification system that we discussed yesterday. I know they brought it up at the Board of Finance. And then we have a bunch of acrylics coming in to separate the tables to get more than one person at a table, and along with at the computer stations to allow the more use of the technology end of things at the library. So those are the two big projects that actually the air quality and handling system is the big project, and then the acrylics to get more people seated and get more space in there is what they're working on.
Right. And then
So
and then getting the word out, like you said, that the library is open and try to get people to utilize it so as to hopefully not be quite so self-isolating.
Yes. And I just want to thank everyone for coming. I have to jump off and go have a meeting with Eversource.
Yep.
But
we're going to wrap up now too.
All right. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. It's good to see everyone, and we'll chat again soon. Great.
And I want to thank everybody for joining us. Again, our guests from the United Way. Thank you for your participation on the call today. And lastly, I'll just say, shoot me over if you have ideas on if we want to consider exploring this committee creating some kind of a roadmap to recovery type of plan for more for down the road. But if you've got thoughts on that or on other things that you think that this committee could be utilized to do at this time, please share them with me and or with the whole group. And with that, I want to bid everyone to have a great day, great week, and thank you very much for joining us for the call.
Thank you for inviting us.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.